I arrived in Denver with the kind of restless energy that only comes after weeks of grinding through deadlines, long nights, and the quiet panic of feeling life slip into routines I never asked for. The trip wasn't planned. It was more of a collective snap between me and 3 friends, Rami, Joel, and Lena, who had all been burning out at their own pace. Denver was a midpoint for all of us, a place we hadn't been together, and a convenient escape without too much thought. We found an Airbnb on East Colfax Avenue, a stretch of the city that had been undergoing slow renovation for years, always a shifting mix of old neon signs, dive bars, new breweries, tattoo shops, and buildings that looked like they'd been abandoned since the 80s. The Airbnb listing showed a renovated 1920s duplex with exposed brick walls and minimalist furniture, sitting between a vegan bakery and a vintage clothing shop. The owner's reviews all mentioned how quiet the place was despite the busy street. None mentioned anything unusual. I landed an hour before the others and took a rideshare straight to the place. As soon as the driver dropped me off, I felt the shift in atmosphere. It wasn't anything mystical. It was the sudden contrast. Colfax at dusk, neon buzzing, car headlights streaking by, people moving in unpredictable rhythms. The duplex stood stiff among it all, a brick body with a clean interior visible through the front window. The air felt heavy, like the remnants of a hot day clinging to the ground, even though the temperature had already dropped. I unlocked the door using the code the owner had sent and stepped into the dim entryway. The house smelled like cold dust, cleaned often, but with an old structure's heaviness beneath it. I dropped my bag, took a breath, and tried to shake off the creeping tightness settling behind my ribs. I chalked it up to exhaustion, to travel, to the abruptness of escaping work. I walked around the place as the sun disappeared behind the buildings. The living room had modern grey furniture, an abstract painting over the sofa, and a television mounted on a floating shelf. The kitchen was small but updated with new appliances. The 2 bedrooms sat across from one another on a short hallway, with a single bathroom at the very end. There was nothing particularly strange about the layout or the items inside, but the air felt wrong. Not cold, not eerie, not haunted, just wrong. Heavy in a way I couldn't categorize, dense like humidity that didn't belong in Colorado's dry climate. I tried to shake it off by opening the windows. As I slid up the one in the living room, the glass shuddered in my hand. It wasn't a normal vibration from old frames. It hit with a double-tap rhythm, like knuckles knocking from the other side. My body jolted back. I stared at the window, waiting for something to appear behind the glass. Someone outside, maybe. But there was nothing except the street, the neon, and a passing bus groaning by. I blamed my nerves. Travelling does that to me. New environments make me hyper-aware. But when I closed the window, it vibrated again, this time without me touching it. A pulse, quick and sharp, like something striking it from inside the wall. I stepped back slowly. A car horn blared outside. The vibration stopped. My brain chased explanations, old frames, buses shaking the ground, maybe sound pressure from passing vehicles. I didn't settle on any of them. When the others arrived about 40 minutes later, the tension in my chest had eased enough that I convinced myself the window thing didn't matter. The group bustled in with bags and energy, filling the space with motion. For a while, it helped wash away the uneasy heaviness that had settled in the house before they arrived, but the atmosphere didn't lift entirely. The air still felt weighted, like the rooms held their breath when we weren't looking. We tried to relax. Joel cracked a can of some local IPA he'd grabbed on the walk from the light rail. Lena sprawled across the couch, scrolling through photos of places nearby. Rami unpacked snacks in the kitchen. I sat in the armchair near the window, feeling the light hum of the room under my skin. The first incident happened fast. The cabinet above the sink slammed open without warning, not swung open, not drifted open, slashed open with force, bouncing off its hinges and rattling every glass inside. The sound was violent enough that all four of us jumped. Rami's hand snapped back from the counter like he'd been burned. The glasses inside clinked in uneven rhythms, moving although nothing was touching them. The entire frame of the cabinet shivered like something had struck it square in the middle. Before anyone could move or think, the drawer beneath it slid open, hard enough that it slammed into Rami's hip. He staggered back. The drawer didn't stop. It jerked again, as if pulled by invisible hands, slamming shut, then open, then shut again, each motion violent, mechanical, unhesitating. The entire kitchen buzzed like electricity was crawling through the walls. I stood frozen, my breath stuck in my chest. I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. The microwave door swung open next, banging against the side of the refrigerator. Then the refrigerator magnets fell off one by one, dropping straight to the floor with tiny metallic clicks. The air in the kitchen thickened so suddenly that I felt it push against my body. Not wind, not temperature, pressure. A presence vacuuming the oxygen out of the room. I took a step toward the hallway without thinking. The moment I moved, the overhead light flickered, throwing jagged shadows across the ceiling. The cabinet door slammed shut. The drawer slammed shut. The microwave snapped closed with a sharp crack. Everything froze. Silence dropped like a hammer. I felt my skin crawl, head to toe. No one said anything. We didn't need words. Every instinct in my body screamed to leave, but logic shoved back with equally urgent force. Poltergeist wasn't a word I wanted to use. I searched for something rational. A loose hinge, a vibration, something explainable, even though I knew those drawers and cabinets didn't move like that on their own. Rami backed into the living room, his face pale but steady. Joel moved to the center of the room, scanning like he expected someone to be hiding in the corners. Lena stood near the hallway, her hand hovering over the wall. Then the hallway light flickered. Not a simple flicker. A stutter, rapid and erratic, making the narrow space stretch and collapse with pulsing shadows. The ceiling bulb blinked like it struggled to stay alive. The corridor seemed to darken, not because the light was off, but because something swallowed the illumination before it reached the floor. I stepped closer. Every hair on my arms rose. The air felt colder, yet thicker at the same time. Heavy enough that my lungs worked harder with each breath. The shadows at the far end of the hall deepened around the bathroom door. The door stood open a crack, just wide enough to see a slice of darkness beyond it. The pressure built with every inch I approached. Something in the air felt magnetized, charged, alive. I braced my palm against the wall to steady myself. The instant my hand touched the wall, something hit the other side. A thud, directly behind where my palm was pressed. The wall shook. My body jolted backward. Another thud landed below it. Then another. Then a rapid series of pounding hits, like fists or feet, striking the wall from inside the drywall. The vibrations travelled into my wrist, rattling through my bones. I jerked my hand away. The pounding stopped. Silence again. Far worse than the noise. The bathroom door creaked open, another inch on its own. I could feel the house breathing. That's the only word that came close. A slow inhale, then a lingering exhale, moving through the walls, the foundation, the air. I took another step toward the hall. Something snapped. Not audibly, internally. A sense of being seen so intensely and so closely that it felt like someone pressed their face inches from mine. The kind of presence that makes instincts override rationality. I backed away slowly, refusing to turn my back to the hallway. My chest tightened, breath shallow and sharp. The overhead light blinked one final time and went out. The hall dropped into pitch black. The bathroom door slammed shut. Hard, so hard the floorboards trembled. The sound rattled through my bones. I felt adrenaline surge so violently that the edges of my vision wavered. Panic almost sent me rushing out the front door, but my legs anchored themselves to the ground. Running blind felt worse. Something primal in me insisted that turning my back would be a mistake. The next noise came from the bedroom to the right, a slow scrape across the hardwood floor, like furniture dragging, the bed frame. I had seen it earlier. It wasn't light enough to move easily. The scrape continued for several seconds, then stopped abruptly, as if frozen mid-motion. The bedroom door swung open, inches at first, then fully, revealing nothing but darkness inside. A soft tap echoed from inside the room, then another, like fingertips on glass. I felt nausea roll up my throat. A sudden crash sounded from the living room behind me. I spun around just in time to see the painting above the couch fall, not slide, not tilt, fall forward as if pushed from behind. It hit the floor with a violent crack, the frame splintering. The television screen blinked on by itself, static filling the rectangle with a frantic hiss. The image jittered in horizontal lines, interrupted by occasional bursts of black. The floor beneath me vibrated, not shaking, vibrating. A deep, low-frequency hum that felt like it came from beneath the foundation. My knees trembled. My hands shook. Another crash erupted from the kitchen. Then the sound of heavy footsteps raced down the hall toward me, fast, hard, slapping against the wooden boards with impossible speed. I braced myself instinctively. The footsteps stopped inches behind me. No breath, no warmth, no figure, no anything. Just the overpowering certainty that something stood there. Too close, too real, too present. The pressure grew stronger at my back, a weight pushing the air forward. My chest pounded so violently I felt each beat in my teeth. I stepped away, slow and steady, refusing to sprint even though every cell in my body screamed at me to run. The footsteps followed, matching my pace. One step behind me, always one step behind. I moved into the center of the living room, and the pressure suddenly eased, as if whatever tracked me stopped at an invisible barrier. The air grew lighter, not normal, but less suffocating. The static on the TV stopped instantly. The screen went black. The house went silent again. But the silence felt like anticipation, not calm. A pause rather than an ending. Joel motioned sharply toward the front door, but before any of us could reach it, the deadbolt locked itself. The sound was unmistakable, metal turning. The bolt slid fully into place without a hand touching it. The porch light outside flickered through the small window in the door, casting intermittent pulses across the floor. I reached for the lock, but the moment my fingertips brushed the metal, the coat rack in the corner toppled over with violent force, slamming into the floor inches from me. My entire body jolted. Something wanted us away from the door. I stepped back again. The air felt thick, but this time the tension shifted, moving upward, gathering like a storm above our heads. The ceiling creaked loudly, not the usual settling of an old building. A long, dragging sound swept across the length of the ceiling, like something crawling or sliding against the boards. The weight of it pressed downward, making the room feel smaller. I tilted my head up, every muscle stiff with dread. The overhead fixture shook. Dust drifted down in a thin, ghostly veil. The crawling sound paused directly above us. Then the ceiling above the hallway shuddered. A thump followed, then another. Then rapid pounding, moving from one end of the hall to the other, as if something sprinted overhead despite there being no accessible attic. The house groaned under the pressure. The bathroom door creaked open again. I turned toward the sound, expecting more darkness, but instead I saw something far worse. The shower curtain inside swayed, not randomly, not from air circulation. It moved with deliberate rhythm, as if someone brushed a hand along its length from inside the tub. The rings along the rod clicked one after another, like beads being pushed along a wire. My skin crawled so intensely my knees nearly buckled. The curtain stilled abruptly. The pounding overhead stopped abruptly. Silence. Total, suffocating silence. For a moment the house felt dead, the air stale and unmoving. Then a single object moved across the living room floor. A key. The spare house key that had been sitting on the counter when I first arrived. It slid across the hardwood several inches, noisily scraping as it moved toward the hallway, stopping just before the boundary where the shadows deepened. I stared at it, lungs frozen. The house exhaled, a heavy, windless exhale that pressed against my chest and back simultaneously, like being squeezed between invisible arms. The key slid another inch, another, then stopped. The bathroom light flickered violently, throwing spastic reflections onto the hallway walls. The shower curtain inched open. My heartbeat crashed into my ribs. The front door's deadbolt unlocked on its own. This time, we didn't hesitate. We moved. No one needed to speak. Instinct took over. I grabbed my bag with one hand and reached for the doorknob with the other. The metal felt hot, like it had been sitting in sunlight for hours. The house let out a final groaning creak, floors shifting, walls flexing, like it was pulling its weight inward toward the center. The key on the floor jerked sideways as if yanked. The shower curtain snapped shut. I yanked the door open. Cold night air crashed into me like a physical force. I stumbled into the street, lungs burning, legs shaking, heart racing harder than it had in years. The others followed, spilling onto the sidewalk in a panicked rush. I didn't look back until we were halfway across the street. The house sat still and silent, the porch light steady, the windows serene. Just a nice renovated Airbnb on Colfax Avenue. We didn't go back inside. Not for our bags, not for our things, nothing. The owner retrieved everything for us later. He said the cleaners mentioned nothing strange. I didn't care. I still remember the feel of that pressure on my back, the footsteps behind me, the pounding in the walls and ceiling, the sense of the house watching, tracking, anticipating. Poltergeist wasn't a word I wanted to use, but I've never found a better one, and I've never rented another Airbnb since.